Raider Nation, good morning. It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And even though I don't sound any good, I hope that you tune into today's show because I got some very interesting things to talk about, especially the latest going on around the Davante Adams odds. And whether you like it from certain reporters, whether you believe me or not, like the video right now if you're somebody when you see shit happen in Vegas, because Vegas odds, they always know. They're half the reason why I say where there's smoke, there's fire. And you guys need to see the latest smoke going on around the Davante Adams trade odds. Then, at the back half of today's show, we're going to talk about the quarterback battle between Gardner Minshew, between Aidan O'Connell. I'll give you my whole thoughts on it, and I'll tell you if I was the Raiders head coach, AP, who I would start this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So first, very interesting trade odds here around Davante Adams. And I'll also say, I know that it was expected that Tay was going to get traded yesterday. I do think that the whole firing of the Jets, the injury to Derek Carr kind of put a little bit of a wrinkle in that situation. I want you guys to hit that subscribe button. I want you to turn on those notifications because as soon as this trade happens, I will go live. We'll have a whole show already planned for y'all, and we'll stay live for multiple hours, and I don't want you to miss it. All right, so the reason why I did really want to make this video, though, is because I woke up this morning and, like I've been doing every morning, I checked my phone and I go, did I miss anything around Davante Adams whatsoever? And I look and I'm like, all right, nothing out there that I haven't seen. Check my text messages, haven't gotten anything. But then you look at the latest odds. And when you look at the latest odds, there is one team that has jumped up very high compared to where they've been recently. And that is the Baltimore Ravens. Right now, the Baltimore Ravens are a plus 250 odds. And there were some reports yesterday that even Vegas was fluctuating with the idea of putting the Ravens as the number one most likely destination for Davante over the New York Jets. I know that Woody Johnson said that he was the reason why he fired Robert Saleh, but, I mean, let's be real here. There's no way I think that Woody Johnson just got this idea that he's going to fire Robert Saleh if it wasn't somewhat to do with Aaron Rodgers. And maybe I'm wrong for speculating on that, but that's just my personal opinion. So Aaron Rodgers obviously has a very good relationship with Nathaniel Hackett, and Nathaniel Hackett was going to lose play calling duties. I think once Rodgers found that out, he was like, nah, that's not going to happen. And Rodgers hasn't been afraid to call the shots before. So Robert Saleh gets fired. The whole New York Jets trading thing, I think, got put on hold a little bit. And maybe we'll hear a little bit more from Rodgers today. He's going to be on the Pat McAfee show, I want to say at 12:15 Eastern time. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Yesterday, Davante Adams, he canceled his weekly appearance on the Kay Adams show. So that I thought was kind of an interesting thing. But the fact that the Baltimore Ravens, and, I say that out loud, and some of y'all are like, all right, like that fit, I do think it makes a lot of sense for Davante. But then over the weekend, if you remember, he posted that picture of Edgar Allan Poe. He then posted, something like afterwards about believe only like half of what you hear, which is a quote by Edgar Allan Poe. However, though, I also know Davante can be a very cryptic person, and he likes attention. There's no doubt about that. But the fact that you tie in the Edgar Allan Poe, then over the past 24 hours, Vegas really bumping up the Baltimore Ravens odds, I think that those are all very intriguing things. And then, Tay says that he wants to go to a team and says that he wants to go to a place where he can compete for a championship, or he doesn't measure it just wins and losses. He measures it based on greatness. There's not a lot of greatness going on right now in New York. There's not a lot of greatness going on right now in New Orleans. And for the New York Jets, I mean, you can make an argument that organization is a bigger dumpster fire right now than the Las Vegas Raiders. You can make an argument right now with New Orleans not having Derek Carr with that oblique injury for multiple weeks. Like, if I'm Davante, I don't want to go play in New Orleans unless it's Derek. If I'm Davante, I don't know if I want to go to the New York Jets right now with everything going on around there. I know that he wants to play with his friends, Aaron and DC, but those are two and three football teams that don't look like they have a lot of mojo going on. You know what team looks like if they got a lot of mojo going on? The Baltimore Ravens. And if I'm Davante Adams, I'm looking at the Ravens. Then the next team that's the closest in odds, the Buffalo Bills, the team that's the next closest in odds, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And over the past 24 hours from multiple people like Diana Rossini, Ian Rappaport, go look at a lot of the beat reporters for these teams as well. The Steelers are starting to show more interest. There was a report that the Buffalo Bills are starting to show more interest, and the Baltimore Ravens are starting to show more interest. I think this is a situation where they know that blood's in the water, and the blood is from the Saints, the blood is from the Jets, the blood is from the Las Vegas Raiders right now. And these teams are starting to scope around going, Can we swoop in and potentially get Davante? Because, when you look at all the injuries that this team has, and nobody could have predicted for the Raiders that you were going to lose Malcolm Koonce, Christian Wilkins, Divine Diablo, Marcus Epps. I mean, it's one injury after another after another. Max Crosby's been dealing with a high ankle sprain. But I think a lot of other teams know, all right, I don't know if the Raiders are going to be in that win-now mode. Maybe they should start planning for the future. So that means you're going to move on from Davante. But contract does come down to it. When you look at the money aspect of it, the Pittsburgh Steelers can afford him. The Ravens and the Bills, on the other hand, maybe not so much, but I hope that Mark Davis realizes that, you might have to pay Davante in cash. That way it doesn't impact your salary cap, because if I'm the Raiders, I don't want it to impact my salary cap, because I want to be able to stack the salary cap, which right now the Raiders are projected to have somewhere around $80 million next season. I want to keep all that draft capital. I want to try to recruit more draft capital. That way we can build for our future here. But what's very interesting to me is the Baltimore Ravens are absolutely a team to watch now, because they have skyrocketed according to the latest Vegas odds. So here's my question, and I'm going to make this the pinned comment here on today's show. If you were a betting man, where do you think Davante Adams ends up going? And if you want some brownie points, tell me when you think that trade ends up going down. I'm still going to sit up here and say that I believe it is the New York Jets. I've talked to a lot of people inside of that organization. I got a few friends that still work there from my times, and I got some people that are connected in New York. Shout out to Boomer. But I would say this. The Jets are still the favorites. As long as Aaron Rodgers is that quarterback of that football team, then I'm going to say that they're going to try to figure out a way to get it done. And I actually think that if it wasn't for the Robert Saleh firing yesterday, that it would have happened yesterday. If I was a betting man, I'm still going to say that I see it happening today. And the reason why that I say that is because Davante's hamstring, is probably going to be okay as soon as he gets traded, right? But if you're a team and you're trading for Davante, especially a team like the New York Jets, you want to be able to get Davante in sooner rather than later. That way you can get him acclimated to your playbook. And today is the day that practices start. So if I'm a team and I want Davante to play for me this week, I want to get him on my roster as soon as possible. I think for the New York Jets especially, they play on Monday Night Football. They play Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. Winner of that game will be in first place of the AFC East. If I'm Buffalo, I don't want Davante to go to the Jets. If I'm the Jets, I don't want Davante to go anywhere else besides here. And then if you're the Baltimore Ravens, again, another team that's kind of trending in the right direction, and they have it moving right now. How the Raiders ever beat Baltimore, I have absolutely no idea. But that's a football team where, they probably look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They just beat the Buffalo Bills, and the Chiefs are a team without their top two receivers, and they're still able to get it done. They're 5-0. Baltimore has been sitting on that hump of how can we get by that big red machine and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. A trade for Davante Adams might actually help you do that. Him, Zay Flowers could be a very intriguing move overall, and if there's been a consistent franchise, there's a lot of bad franchises in the league. Excuse me, I'm really sick. But then there's a lot of very good franchises, teams that are good year in and year out. And the Baltimore Ravens are always seem to be one of those teams. So if Davante wants to go to an organization that's ran very well, Baltimore, I do think, makes quite a bit of sense here. Now, before I get into talking about the Raiders quarterback battle, because I feel like we're right back in training camp. It's August, July, and all we were talking about is Aidan's in the lead. Gardner's in the lead. We'll get into that in just a moment. I do want to tell you about our sponsor, though, Panda Subs. And even though I feel like crap, I haven't been working out the past 2 days. My dad's going to be in town on Friday, which I'm really excited to see. Also, this just came in as I am filming. Davante Adams is not expected to play this week versus the Steelers because of his hamstring. Now, I don't know if that means that he's not going to play at all if he's traded. I think that simply just means Davante Adams is not going to be playing this week if he's a member of the Las Vegas Raiders, which eye roll emoji. We already knew that that's coming in from Jeremy Fowler. But anyway, back to, Panda Subs here. When I feel really crappy and I got to come to work, I try to avoid a lot of caffeine just because I really, really want to stay hydrated. So I've been drinking a lot of water to be able to track what I've been doing. I got my Panda Subs shaker here, but also because I want to try to avoid that caffeine rush, but I still need to be able to be locked in for work because, I'm a normal person. I wake up tired when I'm sick. It's kind of hard to get going. I'm telling you this right now, this is saving my ass. It is the focus. If you're a gamer, not like Kyler Murray with Call of Duty, but if you're a gamer, if you're a student, if you're somebody who's at work and you need to be able to really lock into what you're doing, go try out the nootropics. These are unfreaking believable. And I know it's something that you've maybe never heard of before. Maybe it's something that you've never done a lot of research in. Look up Panda Subs, go to the Nootropics, and check it out. It's one of the most locked in ways you could ever possibly be locked in. Code Raiders, 20% off at pandasubs.com. That link's going to be for you down in the comments, down in the description of today's show, which I actually need some noobs. All right, we're going to keep it rocking. Let's now get into the quarterback battle and all the Raiders practice stuff going on. If I'm Antonio Pierce and Telesco, I'm not naming a starting quarterback until I have to. And you're 2-3 right now. And I know a lot of us, myself included, have kind of hit that panic button because of all the injuries, because of the way that game went last week. And it's like, F this season, let's already start looking forward to next. But you can't do that if you're Raiders players. You can't do that if you're Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco. Like, you simply can't do it. You've heard a lot of people doubting you. They've probably heard me doubting them. But you got to put your best foot forward, and you got to be prepared. I will say this. I thought the Raiders last week were prepared going up against the Broncos. That was a team in the first quarter of action. They looked like a really good football team. And I know that pick six by Gardner really shifted the momentum, but we were 5 yards away from being up 17-3. And quite frankly, I think if Gardner throws a touchdown there, we win that football game. We need somebody who has a little bit more leadership, because for a team to crumble the way that the Raiders did, I don't think that goes on AP solely. I don't think that goes on everyone. I think that is a collective effort as a football team going, do we care about our team? Do we care about our jobs? Do we care about our manlyhood? Because, when you're moving like that and then the going gets tough, when you fold like a lawn chair, I think that says a lot about you as a person. And I know that playing in the NFL is not an easy thing. I know that I'll never play in the NFL, and a lot of people watching this. However, though, I do think when you look at that Raiders game against the Broncos, and it looked like that team, and I keep saying it, it's like when I yell at my dog Chuck, and he knows he did something wrong, tail between the legs, ears down, and it's just like, oh no, I'm a bad boy, right? Like, not in a good way. That's kind of how that Raiders team handled, I thought, that pick six. So for me this week, the quarterback that I want the Raiders to go with, and I want them to make that decision at the end. You make Pittsburgh plan for both, because planning for Aidan, planning for Gardner is very, very different. Because I think it's exactly what Pittsburgh's going to do against the Raiders. Planning against Russell, planning against Justin is a very, very different thing overall. But I do like the idea of us potentially going up against Fields, simply because we do have Getsy. We do have a staff that kind of knows the ins and outs around Justin Fields a little bit more. And we'll see what ends up happening in that quarterback battle. However, though, when it comes to the decision that the Raiders have to make this week at QB, I'm going to ask you guys a question. You're going to get hit with a YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and give me your answer. If you were the Raiders coaches, who would you start at quarterback this week against Pittsburgh? Would you go with Aidan O'Connell? Would you go with Gardner Minshew? Let me know down below. This answer might surprise a lot of people, and I said it yesterday when I was live talking about Davante Adams, and when we went live yesterday for about 3.5 hours. I would start Aidan O'Connell. And the reason why I would start Aidan O'Connell is for a multitude of reasons. The biggest reason is because, yes, Gardner, I still think maybe gives you the best chance to win for the long run, but it's still an unknown. And Gardner hasn't played well enough to really be like, that's the Raiders quarterback. The other reason is this. When the going gets tough, and there's going to be a lot of going getting tough this season for the Raiders. That's just my God-honest opinion, man. You need somebody who doesn't fold. And I do think Aidan is a lot sharper or mentally tough up here compared to Minshew, where, Minshew's 9 for 9. He's got it rolling. He throws that pick six, and he was a totally different quarterback, especially on that second interception. He's throwing a jump ball to Trey Tucker. That's just the QB who's got zero confidence. And when your quarterback has zero confidence in himself, and you can see it on the sidelines in his body language, like, he looked like a dude that was just totally defeated. When your quarterback looks like that, it is it has an entire impact effect on the rest of your football team. I've seen Aidan deal with a lot of shit, and I don't really ever feel like I've seen Aidan totally just look like a deer in the headlights. And I know Aidan's not the most athletic, and realistically, the matchup against Pittsburgh coming after him, it's probably not the most favorable. But the reason is because I'm thinking long-term here for the Raiders. And again, I don't think that's fair to AP and Telesco, but me as a Raiders fan, I am. I'm looking long-term. You got to be able to figure out what you have in Aidan, because Gardner Minshew and Luke Getsy, it hasn't been a recipe for success, or it hasn't been a recipe that you want to see played out next season, right? Like, No, there's not a single Raider fan watching this show that goes, I want to see Gardner Minshew and Luke Getsy next season. No, you don't. So then that means, what do we have in Luke Getsy? I'm not a believer in Getsy. Probably most of those people watching the show right now are not a believer in Luke Getsy. But if you roll out Aidan O'Connell, you give him a whole week to kind of get some of those reps in, get work with that first team, and then you have Aidan go out there and Luke Getsy. If Aidan's bad, then you could maybe say, well, maybe the Luke Getsy offense has a chance to work. I don't think it has a chance to work. Or if the whole thing's bad again, if I'm the Raiders and Antonio Pearson, I want to save my job because, I've been talking about it. If the Raiders have a top 5 pick next season, there will be conversations around the idea of, do you move on from Antonio Pierce and do you go get a new head coach? And I know that that's an unfair thing to say 5 games in to him being head coach. I totally get it. But if Ben Johnson comes knocking on the door, right? If Kubiak comes knocking on the door, somebody who's got a lot of very good offensive play calling skills and is going to help us to go out and get a Jalen Milroe or Cam Ward, I think as the Raiders, you're not doing a proper job as an organization to evaluate everything. That's why you save your salary cap. That's why you invest and try to get more draft picks. That's why I want draft picks for Davante, because I want to make this destination, the Las Vegas Raiders, a lot of salary cap, high draft pick, a lot of draft capital. I want it to be the destination that all the top candidates want to come to. And with all the drama that the Raiders have got going on and the drama that's been around since Mark Davis has taken over, this needs to be a desirable landing spot, and you need all those things to happen. So back to what I was saying. If AP wants to keep his job, I think he's got to see everything he possibly can with Luke Getsy, because if Getsy's bad with Minshew, if Getsy's bad with Aidan O'Connell, Getsy was bad with Justin Fields, that's 3 different quarterbacks, and again, none of those guys are franchise-changing QBs. Maybe Fields is, if you put him in a different situation. He looks a lot better in Pittsburgh compared to the way that he did in Chicago, but again, different organizations, right? My point is, you got to see what you got in Luke Getsy, and you got to see what you got in Luke Getsy from every aspect humanly possible. And to me, AP, if you want to save your job, you probably got to start Aidan, and maybe you just got to roll with Aidan for the rest of the year, because if you start Aidan for the rest of the year, the Raiders will have a high draft pick. And maybe I'm wrong, and quite frankly, I hope the entire Raiders team makes me eat crow on that. There's nothing that would make me happier. This entire week, I've been a very depressed person simply because I want the Raiders to win. I don't believe in tanking. I don't think a team that has the mantra of just win, baby, commitment to excellence can even have tanking in their vocabulary. And I know they're not going to tank, because if they do and they don't win another game for the rest of the year, I don't think Antonio Pierce is back anyway, right? And I get it. They've lost a lot of pieces on that defense. But the Raiders also haven't lived up to their side of the bill, and they haven't looked as good as what we're hoping for. So to me, you roll out Aidan O'Connell, you see what he's got in Luke Getsy, and you try everything in your human nature to see what this Raiders offense can look like with Luke Getsy at the helm. And if Luke Getsy's still bad, probably the way that he's going to be, and I don't want it just to be stats. If you're looking at just stats when it comes to QBs, then just please go somewhere else. I don't want to hear your argument. I want you guys to go watch the All-22. I want you to see the play designs. I want you to see the play calls. The play calls, that you're doing at the 5-yard line shouldn't be the same play calls that you're doing at the 50. There should never be a situation where you got 3 players on first down and goal, ball at the 5, and 3 guys are in the exact same area. That stuff, that all falls on Getsy, and it's not fair to fall on Minshew. I also kind of just want these Aidan O'Connell truthers, and don't get me wrong, I want people to, fight for something that they believe in. I love that. But, I think we also got to realize that we're fighting over Gardner Minshew and Aidan O'Connell, both QBs that aren't going to be the future here. And whether or not you think Aidan was the person that saved AP's job, it wasn't, right? Sure, Aidan helped out a little bit, but that Raiders defense was the reason why Antonio Pierce got the job. What AP and Telesco need to do a better job next season is you got to bring in a good OC. You need to bring in a good quarterback coach. You need to bring in a good staff, because you're probably going to have a high pick, and you're probably going to have to draft a franchise QB, whether that be Milroe, whether that be Cam Ward, whether it is Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, whoever the hell it might be. But you need somebody that you can trust to get the most and pick the right QB, but also develop that right QB. And I don't think it's Getsy. And that's what you need to figure out for the rest of the season for the Las Vegas Raiders. That's why, on a long tangent, I would start Aidan O'Connell. All right, y'all, I got to get the heck out of here. Jugs is about to be here in a little bit. If anything happens around Davante, you already know we will do our best here to keep you guys up to date. Appreciate everyone always tuning in. If there is breaking news, I promise you I will power through. I do feel really, really sick, so I'm going to try to stay away from Chugs as long as I possibly can today. But reminder, if the trade ends up going down, we're going live ASAP Rocky here on the Raiders Report. For more videos around the silver and black, make sure you click that subscribe button right here. If you need even more videos, I got you covered here, and I got you covered here. I don't want you to miss anything going on around the Raiders. And again, if you missed that news, Davante Adams is not going to play this week if he's a member of the Las Vegas Raiders.